You know the feeling, right? You get a cut, a scrape, and what's the first thing you do? You wash it out. Seems like the most basic thing in the world. But what if I told you that pretty much everything we thought we knew about that simple act has been turned on its head? Today, we're diving into the hidden science of wound cleansing. And look, this is a science that really, really matters. We're not just talking about a scraped knee here. This quote, it points to a silent, massive health crisis, chronic wounds. These things affect millions of people, they cost our healthcare systems billions, and honestly, the scale of the problem is just staggering. So that kind of brings us back to the obvious question, right? You get a cut, you wash it, you slap on a bandage. I mean, how complicated can it be? And that's what most of us think. It's a totally logical assumption.
And there it is. The key phrase right there is "we used to think so." Because what modern science is showing us now is that this simple rinse is actually a super complex, absolutely crucial part of the therapy. The old way of thinking? Yeah, it's just outdated.
All right, so here's the plan for this explainer. We're going to start with the wound crisis, talk about what cleansing really is, check out the modern toolkit and techniques, then bring it all back to the patient. And finally, we'll wrap up with the new standard of care. Let's get into it.
Okay, first up, the hidden wound crisis. Let's just zoom out for a second. For a whole lot of people, a wound isn't something that just heals on its own. It's a real, ongoing problem. And tackling this hidden crisis means we have to be proactive. It all starts with rethinking that very first step, cleansing. Which brings us to a really big shift in thinking. See, proper cleansing is way more than just, rinsing some dirt out. It's a targeted, therapeutic action. It has super specific goals that honestly go way beyond what most of us would ever guess. And just look at this list. I mean, sure, you've got the obvious stuff, getting rid of contaminants, bacteria, leftover bits of old dressings, but it's also about giving the clinician a crystal clear view of the wound so they can actually see what's going on. And that last point? That's huge. It's not just about the physical wound. Helping a patient feel socially clean is a massive part of their mental well-being and their whole recovery journey. But here's the real challenge. The big boss we're fighting here is an invisible enemy, biofilm. So what is that? Well, think of it like this slimy, super protected shield that bacteria build for themselves. It's one of the main reasons chronic wounds just get stuck and refuse to heal. And that biofilm, that is the #1 target for modern wound cleansing. So, okay, how in the world do you fight something like that? You can't just splash some water on it and call it a day. That's where the modern cleansing toolkit comes in. We're talking about some seriously advanced solutions that clinicians have now. And the star of that toolkit? It's something called a surfactant. Now I know, it sounds super technical, but the idea behind it is actually dead simple. A surfactant is just something that lowers the tension between two things, helping stuff that doesn't normally mix to, well, mix, just long enough to lift and wash all the gunk away. This is the perfect way to picture it. Imagine trying to wash a greasy pan with just water. It's pointless, right? The water just beads up and rolls right off the grease. But then, you add 1 drop of dish soap, which is a surfactant, and boom! It instantly breaks that grease apart, lifting it right off the pan so you can wash it away. That's exactly what's happening with a good wound cleanser on biofilm. It's the same principle. And this chart just lays it all out. Your old school options, like saline or tap water, they do basically nothing to that biofilm. Sure, they might wash away some loose stuff, but the real enemy is left untouched. Now, compare that to modern cleansers with ingredients like PHMB or octinidine. These are surfactants, and they are designed for one thing, to attack and break down that biofilm, all while, and this is key, being super gentle on the good, healthy cells that are trying to heal. It is a total game changer. Okay, but having the right stuff is only half the story. How you use it, your technique, is every bit as important. The science of how is where the real skill and precision make a difference. And would you believe it all comes down to a number? There's this Goldilocks zone for pressure when you're cleaning a wound, somewhere between 4 and 15 psi. If you go too low, you're not really cleaning anything out, but if you go too high, you could actually damage the good tissue. So you've got to hit that sweet spot, that safe and effective zone. So how do clinicians actually hit that target? Well, it's not just guesswork. They have it down to a science. As you can see here, by using specific combos of syringes and needles, they can get predictable, reliable pressures every single time. So for example, a 35 ml syringe with a 19 gauge needle. That'll give you a perfect 8 psi, right in the middle of that sweet spot. It's literally applied physics, right there in the clinic. And the whole process, it's like a carefully choreographed dance. Just look at these steps. You clean the skin around the wound before you even touch the wound itself. You've got multiple glove changes, lots of hand washing. While the fuss, it's all about preventing cross-contamination. Every single one of these steps is there for a reason, to make absolutely sure you're only cleaning and not accidentally making things worse.
Now, it's easy to get lost in all the science and the technique, right? But we can't forget the most important part of this whole equation, the patient. At the end of the day, great care is always about the person, about their comfort and their well-being.
And that means, number one, managing pain. Using something like a topical anesthetic before a really deep clean can be a lifesaver for the patient. Even the tools we've been talking about, those surfactants that just lift debris away, that means less poking and prodding, which means less pain. And then there's this little detail you'd probably never even think about, the temperature of the cleaning solution.
Here's why that matters. Healing is biology. It's driven by your cells. And your cells are kind of picky. If the temperature in the wound drops, all that cellular activity, the little engine that drives healing, it just slows right down. So pouring cold liquid onto a wound can literally hit the brakes on the entire healing process. That's why warming up the cleanser isn't just a nice to have, it's a clinical must-do. So when you put all of these pieces together, what do you get? You get a completely new standard of care, one that's built on solid evidence, real science, and a much, much deeper understanding of how healing actually works. And really, this is the big takeaway. We've moved so far past the old idea of just washing a wound. Now, we understand cleansing as a proactive scientific therapy. It's not the thing you do before the treatment starts. Cleansing is a critical part of the treatment.
And that just leaves me with one final question for you. If science has totally transformed something we thought was as simple as washing a cut, it kind of makes you wonder, right? What other simple things in medicine or even in our daily lives are just waiting for their own scientific revolution? What else do we take for granted that's actually way more complex and way more fascinating than we ever thought?